My name is Jessica. I'm 34. I live in Austin, Texas, though I grew up in a small town in Oklahoma where everyone knows everyone and your mom finds out about your first kiss before you've even wiped your lips. I'm a forensic accountant. Yeah, it's as boring as it sounds if you don't understand what we do. The truth is, I'm a detective for numbers. Companies hire me when money goes missing, and I find out who stole it. I see patterns where normal people see chaos. I notice a discrepancy of 47 cents and will dig for 3 weeks until I find where those cents went. It takes patience, paranoia, and a love for details. Mark, my ex-husband, loved to joke at parties. My wife could find a needle in a haystack if that needle smelled like money. Everyone laughed. I laughed. But you know what's funny? He thought it was a compliment. To me, it was an instruction manual. But let me go in order, or I'll get lost and you'll lose the thread. I'll try to be as honest as possible, even in the moments where I look like an idiot. Because I was an idiot. For a long time. Mark and I got married when I was 26 and he was 31. We met at a charity gala in Dallas. I was there because my firm bought a table, and Mark was one of the sponsors. He was in real estate, buying old buildings, turning them into fancy lofts or office centers, and selling them for triple the price. In 2019, everything he touched turned to gold. He came up to me while I was standing at the bar with a glass of white wine and said, "You're the only person here who looks like they want to be rescued from conversations about golf." I laughed. It was clever. He was tall, about 6 feet 2 inches, dark hair, blue eyes, light stubble. And he listened. In the early years, he listened to me like every word I said was a secret worth $1 million. We had a real wedding in Austin, 120 guests, live music, a 3-tier cake. My parents, who'd worked on a farm their whole lives, cried because their girl had made it. Mark bought a house in the suburbs, white, with a porch, a lawn, and a 2-car garage. We got 2 golden retrievers, Cooper and Sadie. I wanted kids. Mark said, "Babe, give me a couple more years. We have time. Let me build an empire first." I agreed, because I loved him, and because I believed that an empire was what we needed. We had traditions. Friday nights were movies at home with pizza. Sunday nights were sex. Yeah, I know how that sounds. On a schedule. We even joked about it. Sunday evening, Mrs. Thompson, he'd say, and I'd laugh. Now I understand that scheduled sex is the first warning bell. But back then, I thought we were just busy adults. He bought me flowers for no reason. He remembered how I took my coffee, with cream, no sugar, a pinch of cinnamon. He called in the middle of the day just to ask how I was doing. I was sure my life was one of those success stories they show in movies, where everything ends with credits rolling over a sunset. Then Olivia came along. In early 2023, Mark said his old assistant was going on maternity leave and he'd found someone new. "She's a firecracker, Jess," he said. "She did some online marketing courses, but she has great people instincts." I didn't think much of it. For the first couple of months, nothing changed. Mark still came home around 7 p.m. We had dinner. We watched Netflix. But after about 3 months, he started staying late. First half an hour. Then an hour. Then he'd call at 8 p.m. and say, "Honey, we've got a new project, the Henderson lot. Those idiots on the city council can't figure out zoning. I'll be late." I cooked dinner for one. Ate in front of the TV. Talked to the dogs. I started noticing small things. He bought new cologne, Creed Aventus. Very expensive. I asked, "Is that a gift?" He said, "Bought it for myself. I deserved it." He started going to the gym. But not the one we went to together, Lifetime Fitness 2 minutes from home. He joined some private club downtown. Better equipment, no distractions, he said. He slept worse. Tossed and turned. Sometimes he'd step out onto the balcony in the middle of the night to take a call. I asked who it was. He said, "Work, damn it. Those Chinese investors never sleep." He changed his phone password. We'd always shared the same code, our wedding date. 051217. December 5, 2017. Then he started angling the screen away when I came near. At first I thought I was imagining it. But after a couple of weeks, I knew for sure. He tilted the phone when I walked into the room. I'm a forensic accountant, for fuck's sake. My job is to notice when something doesn't add up. But I told myself it was just professional deformation. That I was overthinking. That a tired man had a right to privacy. In April 2023, I found the first direct sign. It was a Saturday morning. Mark was in the shower and left his work laptop open on the kitchen table. He hadn't closed Slack. I was walking by to get coffee and saw a notification. A green circle. A message from Olivia M. I didn't want to read it. Honestly, my hand reached for the mouse on its own. It was like a reflex, seeing a number that doesn't add up and checking. The message said, "Thanks for last night. Your bed is way more comfortable than mine. Next time on Friday?" I read it 3 times. I put my coffee mug down. Coffee spilled. I took a photo of the screen with my phone. Then I closed the laptop, sat down on a chair, and stared at the wall. Mark came out of the shower 10 minutes later. He was in a towel, hair wet. "You look pale. Stomach ache?" he asked. "Yeah, something I ate," I said. I didn't say a word to him. Because I knew. If I said it then, he'd explain it away. He'd say it was a joke. That she was just kidding around. That it happened once. And I'd believe him, because I'd want to believe him. And then he'd be more careful, and I'd never know the truth. So I smiled, kissed him on the cheek, and said I was going to the drugstore for some pills. Instead of the drugstore, I drove to a park, parked the car, and cried for 2 hours. Then I wiped my face, went into CVS, bought the cheapest pregnancy test, which I didn't need, and drove home. That day, I made a decision. I wasn't going to be a victim. I was going to be the lead investigator in my own case. For the next 4 months, I lived a double life. During the day, I worked for my firm, finding stolen money for clients. At night, I worked for myself, finding a stolen life. Here's what I did. A voice recorder in his car. I bought a little GPS tracker with a built-in microphone for $80 on Amazon. It was the size of an AA battery. I attached it under the driver's seat of his Mercedes with magnetic tape. It recorded everything said inside the car. I listened to the recordings every night on headphones while Mark slept. Most of the time, he listened to investment podcasts or talked to contractors on the phone. But twice a week, he talked to Olivia. The earliest recordings were just flirting. Then they started discussing me. "She doesn't suspect a thing," he said once. "She thinks I'm just working a lot." Olivia laughed. "Poor cardboard box," she said. "A keylogger on the home computer." Yeah, that was illegal. I didn't care. I installed software that recorded every keystroke. Mark barely used the home computer, but one day he logged into his personal email, forgetting I could see it. I got his passwords. For Gmail, his bank accounts, his crypto wallet. He was smart, but not that smart. Bank statements. We had joint accounts, but he also had a separate account at a bank he never told me about. I found out about it when I saw a notification from a credit bureau. Mark had opened a new American Express card under Mark Thompson Investments. I called Amex, pretended to be his wife, and said we'd lost the card. They reissued it to my address. When it arrived, I activated it and looked at the transaction history. Hotels, restaurants, Victoria's Secret, a flower shop in Dallas, and one payment to a plastic surgery clinic for $6,200, breast augmentation. That was a gift for Olivia. Social media. Olivia's Instagram was private, but she had a friend with a public account. I found a photo from 2 years earlier of Olivia by a pool in Las Vegas with a group of girls. One of the girls was wearing a t-shirt with Mark's company logo. I zoomed in. I saw the name. I found that girl on Facebook and messaged her, pretending to be a reunion organizer. She was chatty. She told me Olivia had been dating a rich real estate guy for at least a year and a half. That he'd bought her a BMW for her birthday. That they'd taken a trip to Cancun that Mark had called a business conference. By July 2023, I had enough to destroy him in court. But I wanted more. I wanted him to destroy himself. I didn't know then that the biggest twist was still ahead. In August, Mark said he had an important investor meeting downtown and would be late. I decided to follow him. I took my old Honda, the one he called your shopping cart, and kept a safe distance. He didn't park near his office. He parked in front of a new townhouse in the Bishop Arts District. I knew that area, trendy, expensive, small houses going for $700 minus $800K. I waited 15 minutes. Then I got out of my car and walked up to the door. I rang the bell. Olivia opened the door. She was wearing a pink silk robe, hair wet, face covered in an avocado mask. She recognized me instantly. Her face went gray. "Is Mark here?" I asked calmly. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. From inside the house, I heard Mark's voice. "Olivia, baby, do we have any beer? Or just that organic crap?" He came out in just his boxers and a t-shirt. He saw me. He froze. The silence lasted maybe 5 seconds. I remember every detail. His panicked eyes, the dirty coffee mug on the entryway table, the baby stroller in the corner of the living room. The baby stroller. I looked closer. Pink. With rattles. "Oh, Mark," I said, still calm. "You didn't mention you'd moved in together. And you didn't mention you had a child." He started stammering. "Jessica, listen, this isn't what you think, it's complicated, let's talk at home." "We'll talk in court," I said. I turned around and left. I got in my car. My hands were shaking. I wasn't crying. I was in that state of cold rage I'd felt only once before, when I was 16 and my father lost the farm in a poker game. Back then, I didn't cry either. I went to that man's house and took the documents back while he was drunk. That's a different story, but the point is, I can act when everything inside me is on fire. I didn't drive home. I drove to my lawyer. Karen White is a woman in her 60s, with a short haircut she dyes copper, a voice like gravel, and eyes like a hawk. She specializes in high-stakes divorce. Her office is in a dark glass building in downtown Austin. She saw me without an appointment because I told her secretary, "Tell her I have financial statements on a real estate developer husband, and I'll pay double her rate." Karen met me in her office. I laid everything out on the table. Screenshots of messages, bank statements, credit card printouts, GPS logs. The car recording, illegal, yes, but she didn't ask where it came from. I told her about the townhouse and the pink stroller. Karen listened without interrupting. Then she closed the folder and said, "Jessica, you have 2 paths. First path. File for divorce tomorrow, get half the marital assets, 3 years of alimony, and ride off into the sunset. That's fair, fast, and painless." "And the second?" I asked. "The second. Wait. Gather more information about how he's using company money on this woman and her child, and hit him with embezzlement. It's riskier, but if it works, he could lose not just his money but his license. And maybe his freedom, if the amount is large enough." "Let's do the second," I said. Karen looked at me with respect. "Are you sure? It's going to get ugly." "Karen, he called me a cardboard box. He bought her tits with our money. He made me feel like I was crazy. I want him to understand that accountants don't forgive accounting errors." We signed the agreement that same day. 3 weeks after I caught Mark at the townhouse, I got a call from an unknown number. I didn't pick up, figured it was telemarketing. But they called again 5 minutes later. I answered. "Jessica?" A woman's voice, middle-aged, with a southern accent. "Who is this?" "My name is Susan Baker. I'm Olivia's mother." I almost dropped the phone. Seriously? The mistress's mother calling the wife? It felt like the start of a bad reality show. "I'm not going to beat around the bush," Susan said. "My daughter is an idiot. I know that. She's always been an idiot. In high school, she set the couch on fire because she wanted to see how synthetic fabric burned. In college, she got involved in a pyramid scheme. And now she's tangled up with your husband." I was silent. I didn't know what to say. "But she's not evil," Susan continued. "She's just stupid and greedy for money. Mark promised her the earth. He told her you two weren't living together anymore, that you were living in the guest house and had a boyfriend. He lied to her just like he lied to you." "Why are you calling me?" I asked. "Because yesterday, he hit her. Not hard, but he hit her. Because she didn't put the baby's toys away. And by the way, the baby isn't his." My brain gears started grinding. "What do you mean, not his?" "Olivia's daughter is a year and 3 months old. Her father's name is Derek. He's in prison in Louisiana for robbing a jewelry store. Mark knows. He told Olivia, 'Don't tell anyone. I'll be the girl's dad. It'll help me in court if Jessica makes a fuss.' He wanted to look like a savior. Like a good guy who took in a single mom. He thought the judge would take his side." I leaned against the wall. It was so cynical that I almost respected Mark. He'd thought of everything. He was building a victim narrative while I was gathering evidence of infidelity. "Susan," I said slowly, "would you be willing to testify in court? About Mark hitting your daughter? About him knowing about Derek and lying?" A pause. I could hear her breathing. "I will," she said finally. "On one condition. You don't go after my granddaughter. She has nothing. You can take everything from Mark, but if you try to drag a toddler into court, I'll deny everything and say you blackmailed me." "The child isn't my enemy," I said. "I only want Mark." We exchanged numbers. I recorded her statement, legally, with her consent. And I now had an ace that Mark didn't know about. Next on my list was Tom Harrison, Mark's business partner. They'd started Thompson Harrison Realty together 8 years earlier. Tom handled the legal side and permits. Mark handled deals and clients. They split profits 60/40 in Mark's favor because Mark was the face of the company. I invited Tom for coffee. Not at the office, not at a restaurant, in a park where no one could overhear us. Tom came looking confused. He'd always been nice to me, gave me gift cards for Christmas, asked about the dogs. Tom, I began, I'm not going to beat around the bush. Mark is cheating on me with his assistant. He bought her a car, an apartment, and paid for her plastic surgery using money that may have come from corporate accounts. Tom went pale. He'd always been an honest guy. The type who wears the same gray suits and eats a turkey sandwich for lunch. Jessica, are you sure? I laid out the statements in front of him. I showed him transfers to an account Mark had labeled marketing expenses. That was actually the rent for Olivia's townhouse. I showed him restaurant receipts where Mark had dined with Olivia and expensed them as client meetings. Tom stared at the papers like he'd been hit over the head. That's embezzlement, he whispered. If the IRS finds out, if the investors find out, the company will collapse. I'll lose everything. My pension, my house, everything. I know, I said calmly. That's why I came to you instead of the DA's office. I have a proposal. I offered Tom a deal. He would gather all internal documents showing how Mark used company money for personal expenses. He would package them as a report of irregularities and take them to the board. The board would fire Mark by mutual agreement, quietly, without scandal, with the wording, personal reasons. Mark would get a severance package just large enough to keep him from suing the company, but he would lose his ownership stake. Tom would become the sole owner. In exchange, Tom would testify in my divorce case that Mark had systematically violated financial discipline. Tom thought for exactly 3 minutes. Then he shook my hand. Jesus Christ, Jessica, he said. You're a terrifying person. No, I said. I'm just an accountant. I filed for divorce in December 2023. Mark was served at work, in the office, in front of all his employees. Tom made sure of that. I heard Mark went white as a sheet and left without saying a word. He hired a lawyer, some guy named Brad who specialized in men's rights. Brad sent Karen a letter saying I was emotionally unstable, and that Mark had always been a faithful husband, and my accusations were products of my imagination. Karen replied with a 200-page folder of documents. The court hearing was scheduled for February 2024. It wasn't a show like in the movies. It was a small room with brown walls, smelling of cheap coffee and old carpet. The judge, a woman in her mid-50s with tired eyes, looked through the papers. Mark sat across from me with his lawyer. He looked exhausted. He had gray stubble he hadn't shaved in 3 days. He didn't look at me. Olivia wasn't in the room. Mark's lawyer spoke first. He talked about Mark being a successful businessman, about stress, about the affair being a brief mistake, and about me exaggerating the damage. Then Karen took the floor. She didn't yell. She didn't wave her arms. She just read aloud. She read bank transfers. She read emails where Mark and Olivia discussed how to get around Jessica using a shell company. She showed a photo of the pink stroller. When Karen called Susan, Olivia's mother, to the stand, Mark finally looked up. He looked like he'd seen a ghost. Susan told everything. About the slap. About Derek in prison. About how Mark had planned to use her granddaughter as a tool in court. The judge listened without changing her expression, but I noticed her grip tighten on her pen. When it was Mark's turn to testify, he fell apart. He started speaking in long, tangled sentences. He said he didn't remember many of the transfers. That Olivia had made it all up. That Susan was jealous of his success. The judge cut him off. Mr. Thompson, do you have any evidence contradicting the bank statements? He went silent. The outcome was decided. The judge ruled. The house in Austin goes to me. Both cars go to me, including the BMW, since it was bought with marital funds. 70% of joint savings go to me. Mark's retirement account is split 60/40 in my favor. Alimony of $4,500 per month for 3 years. All attorney's fees paid by Mark. In addition, the judge made an oral note in the record. The use of corporate funds for personal purposes, including rent payments for a third party, may be referred to the IRS. The court recommends Mr. Thompson resolve this matter voluntarily. That wasn't a sentence. That was a warning. Within a month, Thompson Harrison Realty announced Mark's departure for personal reasons. Tom became the sole owner. Mark received a check for $50,000, a severance that would have covered 6 months of rent if he hadn't owed his lawyer another $40,000. He sold his Mercedes to pay off debts. Olivia, cut off financially, moved back to her mother's house in Houston. After the divorce, I thought I'd feel relief, or anger, or joy. Instead, I felt emptiness. The house was too big for me and 2 dogs. I stopped cooking dinner because there was no point. I sat in front of the TV with Chinese takeout and watched shows Mark and I used to watch together. My friends said, "You won. You took everything from him." But I didn't feel like a winner. I felt like a woman who'd wasted 7 years of her life on a man who called her a cardboard box. In May 2024, I decided I needed a change of scenery. I sold the house. Yes, that white house with the porch. I sold it to a family with 3 kids. They were so happy I almost envied them. I bought a small house on the Florida coast, in a town called St. Augustine. 14,000 people, 3 churches, and 1 coffee shop where the barista knows your name. I work remotely for the same firm. My clients don't know where I am. They don't care. I started therapy. My therapist said, "Jessica, you're used to controlling everything with numbers and facts. But you can't control pain. You can only survive it." That was the smartest thing I'd heard in a year. In July, I ran into Mark by accident. I was in Austin for the weekend to pick up the last of my things from storage. I went into a Starbucks on South Congress. And there he was, standing in line in a wrinkled suit, carrying 3 bags from H-E-B. He looked 55, though he was 41. Gray stubble, dark circles under his eyes, yellow nicotine stains on his fingers. I didn't want to approach him, but my feet carried me there on their own. "Hi, Mark," I said. He flinched, turned around, his eyes widened. "Jessica, you look good." "Thanks, you don't." He didn't reply. "I just wanted to tell you something," I continued. "You know your Bitcoin wallet is still active, right? There's 0.001 BTC left in it. About $25. Every month you get an email notification. You probably check it every week, hoping Bitcoin will hit 100,000 so you can cash out. But you can't withdraw it, because I changed the confirmation to my phone number." He went even paler. "That's cruel," he said. "You're a psychopath." "No, Mark. I'm an accountant. We're patient, and we never forget who owes us." I turned around and walked away. He stood there with his bags. It's October 2024 now. I'm writing this from my house in Florida. Outside my window is the ocean. Cooper and Sadie are asleep on the couch. I'm drinking coffee with cream and cinnamon, and no one is telling me I need to work more. In August, I started seeing someone. His name is David. He's a history teacher at the local high school. He's 38, doesn't have 2 nickels to rub together. Teachers in Florida get paid peanuts. But he knows how to make an omelet, remembers how I take my coffee, and never looks at his phone when I'm talking. He doesn't know about Mark. Or maybe he does, but he doesn't ask. Yesterday he said, "Jessica, everyone has a past. I only care about the present." I almost cried. But the biggest twist happened last week. Tom, Mark's former partner, called me. We hadn't spoken in almost 6 months. He said, "Jessica, you need to know. Mark was arrested." I almost choked on my coffee. "For what? Remember those documents you gave the judge about the embezzlement?" The judge referred them to the DA. It took them a while, but they found something else. Mark didn't just transfer company money for personal use. He forged client signatures on real estate documents. 3 deals. Total value. $1.2 million. That's grand-scale fraud. I was silent. "He's looking at 5 to 12 years in federal prison," Tom said. He was released on $200,000 bail, but he can't raise it. Olivia refused to help. His parents mortgaged their house, but that only covered the lawyer. He's been in the county jail for 3 weeks. I didn't know what to feel. I hadn't wished prison on him. I only wanted him to understand that actions have consequences. But prison isn't a consequence. Prison is a sentence. "Tom," I said, "thanks for telling me. But this isn't my war anymore." I hung up, looked at the ocean. Cooper came over and put his head on my knee. I didn't go to the courthouse. I didn't write him a letter. I just exhaled. Reddit. Here's what I figured out over this past year. Revenge isn't your ex sitting in a jail cell. Revenge is waking up and not thinking about him. Revenge is buying a coffee without being afraid someone will ask where the money came from. Revenge is looking at a history teacher frying eggs in your kitchen and thinking, I could have spent my whole life with a man who called me a cardboard box. Olivia, by the way, got married. I saw it on Facebook. Her husband is a mechanic at a gas station. They just had a second kid. She looks tired but happy. I don't wish her ill. She was a pawn. A stupid, greedy pawn, but a pawn. Mark is in Travis County Jail, waiting for a federal hearing. His lawyer is trying to negotiate a plea deal, 5 years instead of 12 in exchange for a guilty plea. I don't know how it will end. And honestly, I don't care. David, my history teacher, asked me to move in with him. He has a small house, but there's a garden and room for the dogs. I said, let me think about it. He said, take your time. And you know what? I am taking my time. For the first time in my life, I'm not calculating every move. I'm just living. I guess that's the real victory. Thanks for reading to the end. If you're going through a divorce or infidelity, remember, accountants always win. Just kidding, but not really. Update. I got a notification on Mark's old email. I forgot to unsubscribe. The Bitcoin wallet is still active. He checked it yesterday at 3:47 a.m. from jail, through the approved device system. Probably hoping the price had soared. It hadn't. Update 2. David read this post. He said, you really left him 0.001 Bitcoin? That's cruel. I said, he hit a pregnant woman. David was quiet for a minute and said, okay, leave it at 0.0005. We're getting married in April.